this is a great time to experiment and figure things out if you know what you're looking for. Don't just waste this time as, oh, I'm not racing until 21. I guess I just go back to off-season base phase. And while there's a lot of things that's useful about that in terms of limiting your stress and keeping things down and being more flexible, and I'm all for that, it's also just a really great time to know what works for you and maybe work out some of the kinks. That way next year you're not starting over from scratch 2 years in a row.
Good morning from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Good morning. It is July 10th, 2020, and welcome aboard Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 389.
Good job.
389. I've been keeping track, man. But before we do our regularly scheduled intro here, that's super structured and very professional. Can we just say thank you to our listeners? We check our downloads about, what do you say, twice a year? Maybe around twice a year. We regularly, we just don't check them. We don't do sponsors or ads or commercials or anything, so we don't really have much reason at all to check in and see what we can throw out there to get people to have us do paid advertising for avocado mattresses and super special health insurance that'll lower your deductible by $88 if you can run a 5K in 21 30. But we peaked at them. You did last, or I guess a week ago, and we had our highest downloaded month ever in June. 65,000 downloads in the month of June. I don't know what that says. I don't know if that says about us or the fact that there are a lot of people out there who are lonely and have nothing better to do than to listen to us. And I think it's probably more the latter. But I just wanted to say thank you. I know we do have quite a few listeners, and we've met quite a few of them. We hear from a lot of them in our closed Crushing Iron Facebook group, which if you want to be a part of that, you can hop on there and we'll let you in after answering one simple question. And we'll also use some questions from that group to drive the podcast today. But I just want to say thank you for everybody who's listened and given us their time and given us feedback and has been with us through, going on 4 years now. It's kind of ridiculous to think that we're creeping towards our 400th episode and that we can have that many downloads in a month. It's I think humbling is a word that's really overused. But in this instance, it is.
Humbled.
Yeah, I'm very humbled. We got humbled today. A very humbling experience. It is to think that many people, listen to us, and the fact of the matter is, there's probably 63,500 people who listen to it one time, and then our 1,500 faithful listeners that cap us off at 65,000, and the rest don't listen to us again. But no, I just wanted to say before we got rolling today, I just wanted to say thank you.
That's very nice and transparent of you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I try to be
these
transparent.
podcast stats are usually kind of hidden behind the weeds, and but anyway, yeah, I'm glad you said that because I am very thankful for that as well, and it's been amazing, and we're on the cusp of maybe upping our game a little bit. So hang tight for that, and the podcast. I mean, it'll be the same, but it may sound a little different, in a good way. Hopefully here soon. So we're excited about that, and we're getting ready to move into the hub here soon, and our training center that is
Upgrades,
like a
baby.
fine-tuning device for endurance athletes. I'm trying to come up with a slogan.
Yeah, I know you're working hard there, but it's not doing a great job.
Come on,
the podcast is going to be upgraded. We went out and we splurged a little bit and bought some actual, like, real deal microphones and stuff. So we are going to come through crystal clear and smooth for all of you. At least we're just trying to do the best we can.
Figure it out.
And figure it out. But for the rest of you, if it's your first time tuning in, as always, we appreciate you listening. We cover all things triathlon, and we cover a lot of life as well. Both Mike and I are both coaches and athletes. I've been doing this for going on like what seems like 15 years now, which is quite a long time. And then obviously we have our athletes as well. We use them for a lot of our topics, and for the most part, we just talk about racing. We talk about life. We talk about swim, bike, run. We talk about nutrition. Whatever we are kind of going through our own minds, we talk about that, and if we can share our personal experiences, and I think that's one of the biggest kind of points to get across in a lot of this is that neither one of us consider ourselves experts. I think one of one of the biggest mistakes that I think people make in kind of giving opinions as if they claim to be experts, and neither one of us consider ourselves experts. I would consider us being experienced, and we've done this. I've been doing this for a very, very long time, and so that's what we try to do. And I'm sure sometimes we probably misspeak, especially with me, your delivery is always pretty much perfect, but that's where you're everyone's favorite. Is my delivery might not be the greatest, but we genuinely have you genuinely have your best interest in heart, and we try to share our experiences, our missteps, our failures, how we've overcome obstacles, how we've succeeded. We share plenty of stories of how our athletes have succeeded, and just kind of do our best to set you up for success, and hopefully you can avoid some of the many pitfalls that we've had in our own personal lives and also our triathlon life, and then also share very in-depth things about training and racing and how to make yourself a better all-around athlete, but at the same time keeping perspective and making sure this is a journey that's happy and healthy for you, so you can ride it out. And if there's ever been a year to ride things out, it is this one. And just make this a sport that's sustainable. And in order to do that, you have to approach it the right way. You'll get burnt out, you'll get distracted. And so that's it. I mean, we try to do our best we can to deliver it that way, and hopefully you can consume it and apply it to your daily life. And hey, if you can do that, we'll consider that a win, baby.
Yeah, and let's face it, there's really only one expert in your life, and it's you. You have
Yeah,
to learn
un-
through experience.
unless you're married, then your
Oh,
spouse is
that's
always the expert. I mean, like let's make that very clear.
yeah, true knowledge is experienced. The rest is just information.
It's so true, man. So
How about
true.
that? For
That's very deep. I'm gonna let that lead us into our. Because listen, I have speaking of goals, I have a lofty goal today. We have
oh,
never I posted. I just got back from vacation last night. Took a little trip down to Florida and tried to relax and did a horrible job of it. But I'm back. The
geez.
same, yeah, the same unrelaxed version of myself. Um, and I posted in our closed group, which is again is on Facebook, Crushing Iron. You can search that, we'll let you in. And I just said, hey, why not do a little Q&A today? We always have fun doing these. There's always a lot of great questions, and I always say we're gonna try and do our best to make it all the way through today, and then fail miserably. Always get an E for effort. Try to keep it zone 2. Today, I'm going all in. I'm going zone 3, zone 4. I'm going to cover. I'm not going to say I'm going to try. I am going to cover every single topic today before we get off this podcast. I'm going to make them short, succinct, and to the point. And then, a lot of these hopefully will spurn on other conversations in our Facebook group. And then obviously we can have take some of the more popular ones or the ones that people really like, and maybe tackle them next week on lengthier podcasts where I can go a little bit deeper. But in terms of just trying to get it done today, that's what I'm doing, baby. I'm going to get it done.
All right, I'm gonna be throwing up hard stop signs then.
Perfect. I
Yeah.
love it's nothing like a good old hard stop. First one, David Volk. How is that humidity has an impact on swimming? I mean, I'm in the water. It's 100% humidity. Well,
Okay.
here's the thing. If you're outside in the pool, you're still breathing in the same air. It's still going to make it suck. But that is something that, to be honest with you, I think he was kind of joking here, but uh, people do totally underestimate the impact that dew point and humidity has on swimming. They only think about it in terms of running, because I think the heat gets to you uh, a lot more, excuse me, a lot easier. But yeah, if you're outside, you're still breathing in the same air. That's going to be super saturated with moisture. It's going to make things hard to breathe. So if you're outside, then it's going to make it very, very hard to breathe.
And elevation,
What
right?
do you mean elevation?
I don't know, like swimming in Colorado or something. I was always heard that boulders swim is at
Oh, you
elevation.
mean not elevation? You mean like altitude? Yeah, yeah,
Right.
definitely. Yeah, altitudes. Yeah, same way. Altitude, humidity, dew point, all those things really, really affect your oxygen consumption and can make things very hard.
There you go.
You
Move
go,
on.
David. Chad Bear. What are the best run workouts to fit in hills and elevation? The best run workouts to fit hills and elevation are every workout. Now, don't get me wrong here. You don't want to be just doing hills that are long, long, long all
No?
the time. You definitely want to. Well, that's just what I'm trying to say is like you don't want to just go run up this super long hill every single day and just do that for your training. You do want to mix it up some. It's the same thing like trail runners. They don't just only run on trails, they run on the road. Like you still want to increase your running economy, you still want to have fast legs and a faster cadence, but generally like a good rolling terrain is awesome. I think it's great for you. You don't want to be super hilly every single session, but it's also a good thing.
Yeah,
Kendra, help me with them. This is a tough one. I might toss
I
the ball to
might
you
have
on
to
this.
defer to me on this one, dude.
Yeah, help me with the mindset around getting older and slower. Which, to be, let's be honest here, it's also those don't always come together. We have plenty of athletes and a lot of athletes in our group. You can get faster as you get older. But she also says, when I was younger, every race was a PR. Shoot, every workout was a PR. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but now that I am starting over, every workout and every race can feel like a disappointment, regardless if I gave it hell or not. I'll give mine, and I'll give my quick, and then I'll let you hop on this one. Um, Obviously, there's only going to be one best workout for your entire life, and the rest of them are kind of in the middle, and then you're going to have one worst. Everything else is in the middle. I think the biggest thing to address here, though, is that now that I'm starting over, every workout and every race can feel like a disappointment, regardless if I gave it hell or not. If you're starting over, then you should basically give yourself the grace to not do sessions and training in a judged zone. You should not judge anything you're doing. That's metric driven. Everything you should do should be based on effort and execution. What also should do is remind us all, because we've all been there, of that it feels great to quit. It feels great to put things aside. It feels great to lower our training. But you know what else feels worse? The road back. The road back, it brings up so many different emotions and so many different memories. Oh, I wish I hadn't lost it all, but oh, it felt so good last time I was doing it. It's like choosing to take that first walk step in an Ironman marathon. You're running and it's super painful. You're like, oh, but it's gonna feel so good to walk. Oh my God, it's gonna feel so good to walk. And then you walk and you're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And then you try to convince yourself to run again, and you're like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. It's like, should you more than likely should have just kept on running, because you would have gotten there and you would have been in pain, but you've gotten over with, and now you just prolonged it. So no, I mean, I think a lot of it is perspective, and also, like, why are you doing this in the first place? Are you doing it to try to beat what you could do when you were 18? Because a lot of people can't. Like for me, I'll never be able to swim the way that I could when I was 13, 14, 15. I was doing like 50-second hundreds like when I was 12. I'm not even going to come close to that ever again, unless I like went all in on swimming, and then it'd probably leave me gas. It's just how you have to measure yourself differently, just same way that you measured yourself differently on what success was when you were 18 versus what you measure success based on now when you're 45 or 50.
Yeah, I mean, definitely in that spot where I'm sort of making a comeback again at age 56, right? So when I started this at 49, I was, out of sorts and really out of shape, and it was difficult. But I ended up, like you're saying, or like she said, getting faster with every, workout. It seemed like a PR, and I kind of went through that phase. And now I'm facing this whole thing about like, oh, can I get faster? I don't know. But I think as you get older, what I've been noticing is you have to pay more attention to the little things. And like, for example, sleep. I think we just underestimate that like to the biggest degree. I mean, we have to get serious about sleep because it's a recovery element, right? So those kind of things really stick out to me. And also, the good news is that most of us are doing longer. Well, we talk about long course on this podcast a lot, 70.3 full Ironman type stuff. And if you think about it, it doesn't really mean speed. I mean, as much as we think. So it's kind of about strength. So I think that being cautious and in our training and not trying to do that PR every time and training workouts and things like that, and building strength over the long haul. And as you always say, it's not about, who's the fastest, it's about who slows down the least. So
Hmm.
there is opportunity for that. And I think we have to manage that a little bit more. And I know I do that like in workouts. I'm not I don't want to say pushing myself, but I'm not pushing myself over the edge with the idea that I can recover. I have to be really careful of that edge and, and time it out for races. It's like the PRs I think are still there, but we just have to be really careful about when we try to go get them.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think another the biggest one too is like, because there were some follow-up questions below that. Krista Dungy says, I'm also curious to know what to expect as we approach 50. Should we be expecting less improvement, or should we even be expecting a decrease in performance? This is a great question, and I hate hearing this because, I'll be honest, a lot of times it just feels like people use it. Oh, I'm just getting older. I'm never going to be as fast as I was. One of the most important things you have to think about as an athlete is, how long have you been doing this? If you're 48 and you're just getting into the sport, you're probably not going to be your best version of your triathlon self or running, whatever it is, until you're like 53 or 54, because it takes time. Right? It takes time to build a huge base to get performance. Like, you can get significantly faster. However, if you're a person who like started doing triathlons when you were 18, like, it's going to be, by the time you hit 50, you're probably not going to be able to hit the same times you in your late 20s. Like, for me, I was looking back the other day at my best race from 2018, which was a 4:34 at a 70.3 distance, and I thought to myself, man, I still think I can go under 4:30, but the time to do that is now. I better hop back on that train, because if I wait till I'm like 45, 46, and it's not the age, okay? And I think, like, let's just get that out of the way. It's not all. Yes, are you going to get slower at some point? Is the improvement going to diminish? Yes. But you're not even going to know that point until you're 2 years past it, right? If you're being consistent, it's all about accumulating overall fitness every single year. And if you're doing that, you're not going to see these huge dips. It's people just love to use the age thing as an excuse. Oh, well, I'm just getting older, I'm just getting slower. You just accept that. Well, if you accept that, then guess what? You're also not going to train as hard. You're not going to be as consistent. Therefore, guess what? You're not going to see the improvement. You're not going to see performance gains. And then what you can do, you're going to roll right back to that. Well, see, I'm getting older. I'm not doing it. Like, it all depends on how long you've been in the sport. If you're a first-time athlete and you're 50, then you're not even going to hit your best till you're 55. And so it's not about getting older. It's about how long you've been in the sport and what does your athlete life cycle look like. So no, I think age is so overrated and is used as an excuse so often in terms of people having poor performance and not getting better. When the fact is, it depends on how long you've been in the sport, how long you continue to do it, and how long you want to be consistent doing it. And which is every athlete's biggest misstep or biggest, not failure, but where they could see the biggest area of growth is if they just choose to stay consistent year round for years. That's how you get better. And yes, you might get older, but your body's going to get fitter and faster as well.
Yeah, it does. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about experience is knowledge, and that really transfers into the sport. And I mean, all you got to do is look at the upper end of my age group, 55 to whatever it is, 60. God, but
Hmm.
there's some fast people, man. And I think a lot of it it comes down to, it's like, okay, taking the sport a little more seriously, and that's all the little things, the diet, the
Hmm.
sleep, like I was talking about. I think that you have to do that, and it's a good opportunity because, hopefully you've burned out on some of the things that used to distract you, and as you move forward, I fully expect that my best Ironman is yet to come.
Ooh, bold words. I like it.
I know that's after 7 straight years, and
Yeah.
I'm ready to. I still think I can do it. I mean, I know I finishing several of these. I know I've left a lot on the table somehow. I just got to figure out how.
That's the name of the game. Phil Jones, if you were trained for an Ironman race and it gets canceled, how would you change up your training to do a 45-mile ultra marathon instead? And how long would you need to get ready? Asking for a friend. Well, knowing Phil like I know Phil and being in charge of his training, I would say 8 weeks would be what I would change. And obviously, we would probably take away one cycling session, add in 2 or 3 more runs, get a couple longer trail runs. But other than that, you're actually going to be in pretty good shape. But also depends on what kind of course it is. If it's a super flat course, super hilly course, that would determine on if you need more time or less time. If you're going to be running the whole thing or someone's going to be hiking or walking, because cycling will obviously help with that. Lisa followed up with, or a 100 miler, asking for a friend also. Yeah, that's a totally different ballgame. I'm not even going to answer that one. You would need a
Well,
well, and I
no,
also
I
don't
know,
know,
I
Lisa. I
know,
mean,
I
like,
know.
it's about it's like, again, like going back to the aging, it's about how consistent you've been for the last year or two, not what you've done in the last 12 weeks. People tend to get like really high on themselves or really low on themselves based on what they've done the last 2 or 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, or the last training block. Everyone gets real pumped up about who they are and what they've done, and or they get really down on themselves. How about this? How about take a step back and scroll through your training peaks for the last 2 years? Then see what you've accomplished. And if you're a person who's put together consistent weeks, like I know Phil has for the last 2 years, then the jump up isn't going to be nearly as difficult as it would be for someone who, like, plopped in a little training peaks 20-week Ironman plan after being on the shelf for 6 months and choosing not to train, and then they're like, oh, I think I can bump up to a 50 miler. That might not be the best idea, because you don't have nearly the base you thought. You're caught in, what am I doing right now versus what have I done over the span of 6, 8, 12, 18 months.
Hmm. Isn't there an equivalent, like Ironman is kind of worth an Ultra 50?
I think it's close. I think it's close to a 40 or 50. In my opinion and personal experience,
Effort, I was
a
thinking.
70.3 is about the same as a marathon. But I think a marathon is harder to pace and takes more out of you, but it's pretty close.
Okay.
Derek Stone, is this the year that creates an adventure racing mindset, swim, run, gravel rides, trail running? I think it already has to an extent. I think all three of those are already gaining a lot of popularity. I also believe that in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see a gravel triathlon boom. You heard it here first. I think,
What?
yep, I think they're going to, I think
Gravel
yeah, I
triathlons.
think they're going to have, kind of like a bridge away from Xterra. They're going to have they're going to do the swim in like a lake or whatever. Then you're going to hop on your gravel bike and do a gravel ride. Then you can hop off and do your run either on gravel or a trail. But I see that coming. Trail running has already been super popular. It's getting more and more popular because people can actually go and race those. I went and raced one. We have a team race in December. That's a trail race. I do see this current situation we're in as being good for all three of those sports.
Mm. Uh, yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think there's a lot of different things that are popping up right now, and it kind of ties into that. There's a question coming up regarding Ironman, and it is going to be interesting to see what the, you know, like temperament is around Ironman races after this year. If people are kind of losing, because I feel like it's in a way sort of like what's happening with us in sports. It's like sports is gone now. So are we trying to figure out different ways to entertain ourselves? That maybe is at the core of the question.
Yeah, I think it's going to be it's like everything else. It's going to be a very, very, very fluid situation. And just when we think we know the answer, it's all going to change. Chad Bear, if you have never done triathlon, how many ollies before bumping to a half? How many halves before attempting a full? This understanding each person has different age, condition, athleticism. And again, these are all the answers we're giving here are very general. The answer they're not unless I know the person specifically, they're not going to be, super specific, and there's always a lot of things to kind of take under consideration. But I would say for someone doing their first 70.3, I would say 2 to 3 Olympics is a great place to start. Because a lot of people need to figure out if they even like that distance or not, or how good they're doing. It's a very, very easy distance to train for. Then how many halves? I generally think 2 to 3 again is also good, because you want to feel like you're getting really good at something. Really perfecting your ability to do it Olympic, perfecting your ability to do a 70.3, and then jumping up to an Ironman instead of just kind of going through the motions and checking boxes. If you really, really want to do well, then I think that's the trajectory. If you just want to do them and complete them and check them off your bucket list or get there quickly, then obviously you can't, there aren't really steps, but you can do one or do very few and then bump your way up to the ladder.
Mm.
But I will say this: I've never talked to a single person who said, I think I waited too long to do my first full. I think I should have done it a couple years ago." Most people say, "I wish I would have followed this kind of trajectory before, bumping all the way up to an Ironman," because then they got caught up in the Ironman every year thing when they could be doing a lot of things different with their own training.
Bingo. I think for me personally, I did two ollies before a half. I thought that was pretty good. And I did one half before a full. And I kind of wish I would have done another half. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's all retrospect. But the one thing that always intrigues me about the ollie and the half thing, the difference is, to me, is the swim is in the ballpark. It's like you go
Mm-hmm.
to do a sprint and you're doing like a 300 yard, and then all of a sudden you're doing a 1500-meter swim in the Olympic, and it's like that's pretty similar to a half. So if you're a good swimmer, there those are that's something I think you need to keep in mind going up to even the Oli distance. Is it's like it's kind of a legit swim in comparison to a half. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know.
Yeah, we're on the right track though.
Yeah. Okay.
Frank, I would love to hear your opinion on how Ironman will improve their image after refusing to be flexible with refunding athletes, with every race being canceled. Will athletes still be loyal, or will this brand die?
Ooh, that's the question I was referring to
Yeah, can I be
earlier.
honest here?
Yes.
Don't if you're
Please be
complaining
honest.
if you're complaining about all of these things, A, I think you should find something different to complain about, but B, read the waiver next time you sign it. All these things are covered in your waivers that you sign when you sign up for these things. They're all covered. Is it frustrating? Yes. Is it disappointing? Sure. Is it aggravating? Absolutely. But you signed off on all of this when you paid them your money, and you chose not to read the fine print when you scrolled through just like everyone else does when you sign up for these races. And I think it's also important to understand that this isn't an Ironman only problem. Every other race that I've signed up for hasn't given a refund option. they've just given a deferral option or transfer to a different race option. Like that's just how like people are doing the best they can. And I think people like to give Ironman a hard time. I'm one of them. But yet, what happens? Every single year, people continue to do them. I don't necessarily think they have this huge image problem. I think we all get caught up on, the 10% is always the loudest, not the ones that, are going to comment on the Facebook group. I'm never doing another one of these again. Oh, hey, nice to see you at Athlete Check-in next year. Like everyone says
Yeah.
that. Like, but I think, like giving refunds is not something that they're, I don't think, in a position to do because I think a lot of money's probably already been spent. And then obviously when you're going through an acquisition and sale like they just went through, it was terrible timing for everyone. Just like this whole thing is for most people. It's just terrible timing. So do I think that they could probably improve in a lot of areas? Absolutely. But in terms of giving refunds and doing these things, a lot of times they actually have given pretty generous deferral options to different races. And I think
Yeah.
eventually that's going to run out. But we signed off on all this when you hit the register and okay, bud. When you flip through the waiver, that's done. That's done. And you can say it's bad business or not, or you can say it's on the consumer to read things thoroughly and know what they're getting into.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that there's one thing about Ironman. It's like it's the elephant in the room. It's the beast, right? And everybody wants to take shots at it or whatever. But like when I signed up for my first one, I think it was $650, and I thought that was like crazy time. But the more I think about it, what a deal. It's like it's a great investment. So, I mean, for what you get at these races, I think we should all in some ways be, I mean, I don't really think there's much of a competition out there for them, but for being sort of on their own out there, I think we should, I don't know. uh, Let's get behind them a little bit because I mean, it'd be nice if they come back strong. I mean, because races are amazing. I mean, that's 90% of what we talk about, and we love their races.
Yeah, and
And
the way to look at it is you've already paid for all next year. Like, I mean, it's
right,
already done. Done. You just move the. I mean, I know it's frustrating because some people probably maybe need the money or whatever, but for a lot of people they've written it off. Like you spent it last year.
dude. I
Now it's
talked
going
to
to
a
be
guy who
next
spent
year.
$950 on fireworks the other night, and they were gone in 20 minutes. It's like
That sounds like a him problem.
I know, but I'm just saying, $700 like to kind of keep you on track. I mean,
Dumb,
that's how I
dumb.
always look at it, as sort of like it's a force feeding me discipline,
Yeah,
and
and there's
now it's
there,
going to have to
there's
be longer.
yeah, and there's very few perfectly right answers for every business right now that's doing the best they can. But again, like I know that's my sound really harsh, but if you registered for a race, you clicked on a button that basically said that's fine. So you can't complain about it now. In my opinion, just I mean you can get upset about it, but that's just that's what you signed up for.
Okay,
Um,
that's
all right,
logic right there.
I know.
All
Aaron,
right, go ahead.
go ahead. Aaron, how bad am I? How mad am I making my coach, or how bad I'm making my coach pull her hair out, all by adding half marathon to full marathon races in a random 2 to 4 months out, or is it really no big deal? A follow up was from I second this question. Hey, can I tuck in a 50K in a few weeks before my 70.3? There's a lot of answers to that. Half marathons I think are really no big deal. I mean, and let me go back again, and being general, like it's all dependent on like how much running you're doing. Like if you want to tackle a 26-mile marathon and you haven't been doing 26-mile run weeks for weeks and weeks and weeks, then I think it's a horrible idea. I understand. I totally understand because I'm going through it as a coach. I'm going through it as an athlete. I understand the want to just pull races out of a hat right now if they come up, and I think that is I think you should be encouraged to do that. I think you should feel empowered to do that, and just getting out and being able to race whenever you possibly can. However, I don't think you should do it at the risk of putting yourself and your trajectory in harm's way by jumping up to a marathon, by trying to rush into something just because it's something that seems like a really good appetite. Like, oh, well, all these cookies look great and there was 20 of them, so I ate all of them and they tasted good for a minute and now I feel terrible. Like that's basically what you're doing if you sign up for a marathon undertrained. Like it's just, is it going to be good for me, and what is the and I think another thing to think about is not just like physically what's going to do to you, but mentally and emotionally. If you wreck yourself for weeks and months afterwards, then you're going to be missing out on the day-to-day dose of training that does your body so good. So again, like all these questions are super relative based on the consistent work you've been putting in, the amount of durability you've created, and the extensiveness of like how much running you've been able to healthily handle. Your body doesn't care about your ADD. It just doesn't care. It doesn't care about the fact that you may have a really you've shown incredibly poor decision making skills in signing up for certain races. Your body's not thinking, oh well, you know what, Mike over there signed up for a race, he definitely should have. I guess I should recover faster and get stronger quicker because of that. Your body doesn't care. Okay, your body gives no rats about you doing that. What it's concerned with is self-preservation and getting things right and getting better on a good, healthy sliding scale and trending up. So think about that. Like, and I always say, sleep on it for 72 hours. If you think it's a great idea, sleep on it for 72 hours, and after that you still think it's a really good idea, sleep on it for another 24, and then after that, talk to your coach.
I'm gonna skip this one because we're behind, but that was a great answer.
Yeah, thank you.
I can't disagree.
Kathleen, this time of year I can get out for sunrise swim, so peaceful when I do. Not have time to fit in my strength training. Should I still do some form of strength still, or swim harder to keep the upper body strong? Swim harder. Swim harder. Swim harder. Who doesn't want to get out right now for a sunrise swim? I mean, I would give, I would pay money to be able to do that 3 or 4 times a week right now. Get out, the sun coming out. Some of my favorite experiences ever as a coach is being out there early at Intercenter Beach, and we'd all meet out there. The sun's rising. You're just like, gosh, like you just forget all things that are going on in this world right now. And again, like going back to like looking at your training peaks within like a week or a day, like, are you really missing anything? Or if you're going to miss 10 push-ups today because you went out and swam for 45 minutes, I'll take the 45-minute swim.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. Do counter push-ups when you're cooking.
I like
Huh?
that.
How about
So,
mix it in your
I know you
normal
are. You're
thing?
the commercial fitness guy.
That's my dream, by the way. That sunrise swim right out the back door.
Mm-hmm. Keep the dream
Cold
alive.
water plunges. That's all. I'm all about it. Okay.
Excellent.
We're
I'm gonna piggyback both these. Kristen Winstead said, "Where do I start with strength training?" And also Ashley Drayer said, "Do you feel like you can gain all the strength necessary for a triathlon through triathlon by focusing on hills, big gear work, pulling in the pool, or do you think it's necessary to implement outside gym sessions focused on only strength, also beyond what I mentioned? What are some of your favorite swim bike run strength sessions?" Uh, I give light strength training to some of our athletes, not all of them. I've also seen athletes be incredibly successful without lifting a single weight ever. Or getting hurt ever. So I think it's very specific. I think what the biggest thing you need to look at is like what kind of time do you have? If you're allocating 3 hours a week to quote unquote strength train, then and you could give those 3 hours back to put them towards swimming, cycling, and running, then I think you should do that. Again, like you can only give things based on your experience. My best year ever was in 2018. I didn't lift a single weight the entire year, nor did I get hurt. But so do I think they have a purpose? Absolutely. I think it's all very dependent on your age and also your sex. Like if you're an older woman, maybe you should be adding in, a lot more strength training because you'll have, your bone density will decrease over time. It's a loaded question also because like strength training, in my opinion, like long gone are the days where they want you to do like 2 sets of 20 leg extensions at 6 pounds each. No, like the majority of the studies you see now are they want you doing explosive lifts like deadlifts, power cleans, squats, like, with a barbell, not the ones where you go to the gym and you use that machine. Like if you want to see a real benefit, do those. But then on the other side is, well, you need to do those the right way, or you're risking getting hurt by going into the gym and trying to do a deadlift where you have terrible posture and you're not doing it the right way. So it's a lot of consideration to take in terms of what are my favorites. Any swim session that has big gear work, or excuse me, any swim session that has paddles and pool buoy, I love. Any cycling session that has big gear work in it, I love. And then for running, I'm a huge fan of creating hilly runs on the treadmill, working your way up from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6%. Keep trying to hold trying to maintain the same speed, and then working your way back down.
Mm-hmm. I'm just always been big on like dynamic body weight kind of stuff, because I do think that in triathlon we're using the same motion over and over and over again, and it's tough to get all the muscles. So if you can kind of do these twisty, turny kind of strength motions, and the weight part, I mean, I could see that maybe in the off season. I don't know, but like during heavy training, it seems like a tricky thing to balance. But
Mm-hmm.
but I do think strength stuff is good. I do think that. But my big thing is like, why always have to create a set aside time for it? Just mix it in. Like walk down. I mean, half the time during the day, it's good probably to get up from your desk chair and do a few
Yeah,
things.
seriously.
That's the way I look at stuff like that.
Yeah. Jason Black, what supplements do you think are important for triathlete health, and what do you take on a daily basis? This is way out of my realm because I don't take a single solitary supplement.
Nothing, huh?
I take nothing. I eat
EPO?
food. I eat yeah EPO. I eat food. I mean, I think that's most people should be able to get away with just doing regular food. So no, I'm not a supplement guy, nor am I going to tell people that I use some supplement they should use it. That would turn me into like Ben Greenfield. Danny Balos, would it be silly to use swim paddles in open water training? Recent podcast, one of my favorites. I was there in Louisville 18. We'll never forget my coach Robbie hug at the finish line. Don't remember that, but I'm sure I loved it.
Uh, I saw it.
Um, I'm sure you did. Some probably had some video. Love you, Danny.
Tears.
Um,
Tears are flowing.
you're just making shit up now. Um,
No, I think it's on video. Anyway, go ahead.
would it be silly? No, I don't think it would be silly. I would, if that's your only access to pool, I would definitely throw some paddles in. I think it could be a huge benefit.
I
Uh,
love it. I
yeah.
love
Next
open
question.
waters with the paddles.
Is there a way one can use multi-sport triathlon training program to prepare for a marathon and improve timing? Fatigue due to higher running mileage is a limiter here. Yes, I've had quite a few athletes perform incredibly well, like 6 to 8 weeks after a 70.3, just absolutely obliterating their marathon PRs. So yes, I 100% think it's doable.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Joe Joe O'Brua. Yeah, I like that name. With all the IMs being canceled and thus registration getting deferred until next year, how easy do you think it would be to sign up for an IM next year?
Ooh, good question.
I go back and forth on this. I think demand's going to be incredibly high, and the inventory was going to be quite low. But I also think that Ironman will be letting in more athletes than ever into races,
Do you now?
which is the opposite of what I think other people think. Yes, I do.
Really?
Uh, Stuart Rogers, who is your favorite athlete and what made you choose me? Your wife is my favorite athlete, easily. Meg Rogers, your
Oh,
wife is my favorite athlete. Stuart Rogers, next question. If you're
this
training
is
consist
why you're at
Yeah,
the bottom of the
exactly.
list.
If you're training consistently in a 70.3 shape, how long is an Ironman build? How much time before the race would you begin a race specific build? Excellent question. There's a lot of little comments below that. Um, the the answer the answer to that is, first check with your wife and make sure this is even an okay discussion to have. And if Megan says yes, we can have this discussion, then I would say, knowing you and how incredibly consistent you are, and being one of my top 50 favorite athletes, then I would say 8 to 12 weeks. Well, it also depends on the course, but I would say 8 to 12 weeks. Uh,
Really?
yeah, 8 to 12. If you're in great 70.3 shape. Yeah, and I think
That's the caveat, right?
yeah, that's what he said. Great 70.3 shape. It also depends on the course. Like, you're talking like an Ironman Texas course that's fairly easy, or are you talking about, a course like up in Ironman Canada or like Placid or Wisconsin that's a lot more difficult. It's also very dependent, obviously. Um, Stacey Privia, to add on to Ashley's question, when is the best time, how many times per week to do said strength training so you're not so sore after the weekend's long run? I would always try to get them done like the day before an easy spin. So maybe like if you do a easy ride or an endurance ride on Thursday, and then try to do them on Wednesday. That way you can use the endurance run, or excuse me, the endurance ride is also kind of like an active recovery ride. Casey Evans, if your athlete gets sick during a heavy training phase, how do you ramp them back up after they're starting to feel better? Carefully and delay it as much as possible. One of the trickiest things to do as a coach is ramping up an athlete after they've been sick, because you can't necessarily always believe what they say either. Oh, dude, coach, I'm 100% back, baby. All right, tell me what that feels like. Oh, well, I'm like 92%. All right, what's 92% be like? Well, I'm
Night
probably like 80.
sweats.
Yeah, I'm night sweats, 101 fever. Very carefully, and you have to, and that's why putting yourself and your body on a timeline is totally, it's a unhealthy way to think, because things happen. Life happens, injuries happen, sickness happens, and to ramp your body back up after that is also doing it a disservice, and your improvement or your performance ability at a disservice as well.
What's your
Um,
motto on that again? Above the head, below the head.
yeah, general is if you have something like above the chin in terms of like sinus congestion or whatever, then I say train on as normal. If you have it below the chin, like in the chest or whatever, then I say take all training off or keep it all like zone 1 until it clears up. You just gotta be really careful with stuff like that. And if you feel back to 100%, I say give it 24 more hours.
Mm-hmm.
Just give yourself more time.
That's like if you feel good on the Ironman bike, back it
Hmm.
down.
Yep. Yep. Tracy Brown, what advice would you give an athlete who believes in the run slow to run fast, but consistently needs to walk run to keep her heart rate down to an acceptable range? I've working on running since this winter. I'm not seeing much difference in heart rate or speed. Thanks. My biggest question would be where are you getting your heart rate zones and who told you to keep them below a certain level? And also ask you how long you're doing it. Like if you're running slow 3 times a week and that's it, and you're because like the people use all kinds of different methods to create a heart rate zone, and usually they didn't get it from a test that's even a reliable test. It just their Garmin's by numbers, so they're probably like going creepily slow. That's the biggest thing. You need to even know what your zones are, and I would say run off feel until you disregard your heart rate says. But biggest thing would be I would guess that you're going off a very very inaccurate heart rate zone percentage, and that's why you're not seeing any benefits because you're going way, way, way too slow, and you're not running off feel, which is what I would also suggest. And then I also look at your frequency. Is it up to 4, 5, 6 times a week? But the biggest thing, like I said, is you should 100% question why you're actually making this decision to walk just because your heart rate says this, and is that even accurate?
Mm. Let me ask you a quick question on that. Do you have many athletes that are kind of, I don't want to say obsessed, but like really into their heart rate, like paying attention to it, like over the top kind of thing? And
Yeah.
to me, it seems as though kind of that heavy focus on something could put tension on it. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
if you're really worried about it all the time, rather than like you're saying, just running free. I think that there's something in there too with me and heart rate. For example, you can, if you're super relaxed and running free like you talk about, I think that your whole tension levels down and the whole thing. I just believe that if you're breathing freer and more relaxed, that kind of stuff helps with heart rate instead of
Hmm.
being so like dialed in on it all the time, like for your whole run, like oh shit, there it goes again, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's always athletes that are obsessed with one metric over another. And I think that, you have to be considerate of that, but you also have to kind of get to the core of why they feel like these specific metrics are so important. They read an article, or they have a friend who swears by it, or this and that. And so I think, everything has its place. Everything is important. But and very few things are significantly more important than others. But it's about understanding the athlete, figuring out who what has made them this way to make this like their end all be all. And I think that's important to understand, and then also hopefully move them into a direction that can hopefully be freeing of being attached to certain metrics, as they can be, just to the point to where it's impeding progress and it's impeding their ability to actually enjoy and have fun in their workouts.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Tiffany Appleton. Hopefully this is a fun one. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? I'm gonna let you have this one first.
Well, for me, that's pretty easy. I wanted to be a baseball player, and I always played baseball. I played through college, but I decided that I was going to be a temporarily professional partier instead,
Mm,
and I lost my way on the baseball thing. Um, it was a great dream to have, and I think a lot of times it's funner to have a dream than actually do the work, and that's sort of what happened to me in a way. I mean, and it's not a sad thing. I had a good time, but I liked playing baseball, and that was really my thing. I think if I had to go for something, I wasn't a fireman.
it wasn't a fireman.
A lot of kids wanted to be a fireman.
Yeah, I wanted to be an architect.
Hmm. You?
I was actually accepted to Auburn's pre-architecture program coming out of high school. I submitted a bunch of drawings, like, way back in the day when we didn't use computers. Uh, I would actually, instead of doing my homework for school, I would actually sit up there at my desk and design like floor plans and houses, with my ruler and pencil. And my mom would come upstairs and get so pissed because I wasn't doing my homework. I was like,
Really?
to her, I was just drawing. But
Did
I
you
ended up.
have? Do you have any of
I
those
ended up
sitting around? I'd like to see
no,
it.
no. It was actually the one that I actually used though to get into Auburn's pre-architecture program is one that I did when I was like 12. But I loved it. It was very detailed. I just loved being creative and doing stuff like that. So that's what I
T-squares and
wanted to do.
triangles, huh?
Yep, that's it, man.
Did
Yep,
you
so that's what I wanted to be, and decided to not go to Auburn, and went to Lipscomb and played tennis. And then when I started at Lipscomb, I wanted to be a psychologist, and that is exactly what I am today.
hmm, that's beautiful, man.
As most of my athletes would figure out, I'm a 90% psychologist slash social worker. That
Is
is my
that
job.
12-year-old drawing that you did, is that what we used for the hub?
It actually, you would be shocked. It's not too far
The
off.
vision.
Not too far off. Lisa, can you recommend any sort of jellyfish training? No, avoid them, or just get used to being stung. That's all I got for you. I don't have much experience. I mean, I have experience with jellyfish, but you can't avoid them. They have a mind that's clear, which is crazy.
I got nothing on that one, dude.
Mark Marshall, how does one find the short course gear speed when I've primarily been training long and strong for long course without getting injured because of adding too much intensity too fast? A great thing you can do, in my opinion, is actually do focused intervals with higher RPMs. It'll get your heart rate up. It'll get your legs moving faster because a lot of athletes, myself included, when I've hopped back into short course after doing a lot of long course training, is that the speed is actually there. It's just my body has become so accustomed to only doing zone 2 or zone 3 mileage that when I ask my legs to pick up the pace, they just can't. So I think if you're an athlete who doesn't do a higher RPM stuff, and our athletes do a whole lot of low gear and a whole lot of higher gear. I actually went through that on a Zoom call when this like sustained power phase we went through with quite a few athletes. That's one thing. It's really working hard on intervals, and also understanding that even if you're doing long course, you need to be still continuing to do higher intensity workouts. Like that doesn't mean you should just like take them away. Like you should still add in zone 3, zone 4 work in your runs. You should still add in threshold VO2 intervals on your bike. Like swimming obviously is the same. Like you should still be working hard. So you should still kind of keep that feather in your cap or that tool in your toolbox. You shouldn't just not have it and not work on it. And I think that's the biggest mistake a lot of athletes make, is they just think all I need is only easy miles for all the time, and that's how I'm going to get from point A to point B. I would always recommend adding in threshold and VO2 for most of your stuff.
I have some, as you know, strange theories on cycling in general. Maybe not strange, but just I don't know if they're unique, or at least I formulate them in my mind. So I think cycling is one of those things where ultimately you want to find the right cadence for the right power, right? Just for whatever situation you're in. So like a lot of times when I would ride out at the lab, for example, or the flat area, I would find that ultimate cadence with the biggest gear I could push, but not like throwing me off, and just that I knew I could sustain for a while in an interval. And then what I do a lot of times is I'll purposely throw myself out to the next gears on either side of that and work on trying to keep that, and just kind of like, I don't trick my body into sort of pushing, like, getting caught in something, working on this idea that, oh, I'm out of gear. So I just train myself to maybe go a little bit faster in the cadence than I normally would, or push a little bit harder than I normally would, but all with this centered around the ideal gear for that moment.
You gotta have it. You gotta have it in your toolbox, man.
You got to be able to, yeah, flexible, because you're not always going to be in the right place. But to me, it's like I love going back and forth or up and down around that perfect gear, because then it just kind of rounds me out a little bit, I feel like. And it helps with the higher cadence and the bigger strength gear type stuff, but not
So true.
overdoing it. You know what I mean? It's kind of
Oh
in the
yeah,
pocket.
yeah. That's yeah. You gotta keep it crisp too. Is the thing.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Is that it? I copied them over. Is there more?
No, there was three more quick ones. Jonathan, when you push past the point of overheating your core temp almost always on the run, am I right? Is there any way to pull it back down, or are you just toast? You're toast. You're toast. I mean, you can walk it out, but in order to get it all the way back down, you're going to have to walk for a significant amount of time and cool your body. But once you've overcooked, you've only got a certain amount of time left in that overcook before you're burnt. And that is why so many athletes just fail to execute any kind of run in this time of year, because they go out of the gate obsessed with pace and not how they feel, and not looking at the weather and the temp and think, you know what, I need to take this run very conservatively, because if I want to run for 60 minutes and not run for 40 and walk for 20, I need to go out of the gate much slower.
Yeah, just go out of the gate at your smile pace.
At your smile pace. Look at you. I like that.
That's
Your smile pace. I was so, I'm not even gonna say what I want to say right now. Kevin Quinn. I enjoy hiking a few times a month in the summer with elevation, 3 or 4 hikes with 2,000 feet or greater in elevation change. How can this be done without affecting overall training? Can this be done in place of a long bike or long run? I definitely wouldn't replace it with a long bike or long run. I think you could add it to complement maybe a different session during the week, but it definitely doesn't replace a long ride or long run. Yeah, I mean, I think they're good for you, especially like, sometimes even in the winter, I'll have athletes go out with like a weighted pack and do hikes, because you can really work your posterior chain in ways that you probably couldn't think. And you probably be, to me, it's like the run hike version of big gear workouts. You can really actually get a lot of really good work in. I just wouldn't replace it. Or if you're gonna do it, like maybe do like a 1 hour run in the morning and then get your hike stuff ready and go out and hike, or do like a 1 hour, hour and a half, like really high intensity threshold session on your trainer, and then go out and hike. Like that way, you're not just totally neglecting the sport you're trying to improve on. It's great to be able to balance things and do things together, but I think you need to, maybe try to mix it in instead of just totally replacing.
I'm all in on that, man.
You're all in on that?
Yeah, I think that's good advice.
Yeah, I mean,
Hikes are
I
great
think I
though,
think you'd
man.
be
That kind of stuff's
surprised.
great.
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised how some of that stuff transfers over, to not losing it, and so I think you shouldn't replace it all, you know, but like everything else is there's a fine balance, in all things, and so you just have to be, you have to be careful with it, and not just totally replace it. Now you can replace like maybe every other week. That's just a lot to focus on.
Yeah, I agree. Wow, look at
That's
us,
it.
man.
I made it, dude. Someone's currently typing. Sorry. Whoever's going to post below, Robbie Krause and Kim getting their dogcast. We're actually a little bit short today, 51 minutes.
No,
Uh,
that's fine.
that
I
was
think
fine.
it's
Yeah,
good.
unless this next question is like a totally transformative, mind-blowing question, we'll move on. But yeah, that was good. I mean, again, like as with all things, like we give our general advice that hopefully like will lead to your own personal best practice. And that's something that I think it needs to be, said again, is that, everyone's body, everyone's life, everyone's experience, everyone's athletic ability, everyone's injury history. Like these are all things you have to take into account for how you can program yourself better. You also can, like, a person who can cover a distance a lot quicker, if they're out running, 6.5 minute miles like it's cake, they can probably transfer a little bit quicker to running, a 50-mile race than someone who's averaging 11:30s, because they're going to be on the course 2 or 3 hours less. Like there's just so many things you have to take into account when asking these questions, and trying to get something that's specific for you. And that's something that a lot of athletes struggle with, is really finding out, like, they keep their training so general based on so many general guidelines that they're never figuring out exactly the best way to do things for them specifically, and where that's finding a detailed training plan, or whether that's, because even that's not, to an extent, isn't going to lead to your best performance. It's just not. I definitely understand and am sympathetic to the needs of, managing finances, but that if you want to hit your best performance, then it's beneficial to have a coach, or to have someone look over your training and to look through things and to relieve that stress and to focus on just you, so you can just focus on life and having fun in training, not second guessing things, or having to go collect, the past 28 editions of Triathlete magazine and picking out the best workouts from there, or picking a Training Peaks training plan out and just hoping it works for you, and then you work it for a week, and then all of a sudden you miss 3 days, and now you have no idea where to start back again. Like it's hard. The sport is very difficult. There's so much information out there, and also so much misinformation that you can apply to ourselves, and for better or for worse. And so, that while our advice is sometimes specific, especially if I know an athlete. It's all general. You should always be. I would encourage everyone to really search out and try to figure out what is truly the best thing for them. And this is another thing I went over in like my last Zoom call with our athletes is like no time is wasted except for doing nothing. And like if you're training for a race or you're not training, like, and especially for athletes who had like an Ironman or 70.3 they're going to do for the very, very first time, they had all these like big hopes and big dreams to do it. Now they're just like scaling their training back. Well, while that's also beneficial, you also want to know how your body is going to respond to it, because you're going to get it better the second time around. So you don't just want to give up and waste an opportunity to be a better athlete and figure out what system or what training method works best for you and what kind of volume you can handle, what volume you can't handle, because the volume you can handle this year, you should be able to handle more volume next year. And so this is a great time to experiment and figure things out if you know what you're looking for. Don't just waste this time as, oh, I'm not racing until 21. I guess I just go back to off-season base phase. And while there's a lot of things that's useful about that in terms of limiting your stress and keeping things down and being more flexible, and I'm all for that. It's also just a really great time to know what works for you and maybe work out some of the kinks. That way next year you're not starting over from scratch 2 years in a row.
All right.
I
like that,
hey,
dude.
yeah, good way to end it. That was fun as always. I really enjoy our Q&As. I know I went through them super quick today, but it stoked some good fires for me in terms of things we can discuss next week. But I hope you enjoyed it. As always, we appreciate you listening. If you want to, and we encourage you, hop on over to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things camp, community, and coaching. We also have info on our online hub, and we'll be releasing more info on our actual training center and facility here in the next week or so.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Yeah, that was a good time. I like the questions. Maybe we'll handle each of them in a separate podcast individually.
Yeah, that's going to take a while, but hey, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. And as usual, if you need anything or have questions, you can hit up Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com, or you can always reach out to me, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy.
All right, dude. Talk to you later.
Yep.